walked in here to this meeting with questions. So we have little note cards and pencils that if you'd like to jot those down, we're going to collect those through the evening to make sure that, if you're like me, I think of something and then I forget. So if you jot it down, then you'll have it.
Yeah, we have plenty of pencils and note cards. We also have cookies from Mary's Mountain Mamas, and it's a new cookie shop downtown. Pat Rigdon, former Colorado Springs Police Department, he and his wife opened that this summer. Pat was on the board of the place, so we thought we'd support him. He supported us through the years. Water and a few soft drinks there, so make yourself comfortable. I have paper because I'm old and I forget my place, and I don't want to just go on and on. My name is Wayne Bland, and
you need a loudspeaker.
There's chairs up here.
There are chairs here.
I'm good right here.
Okay.
My husband's.
We'll project as best we can.
So my name is Wayne Bland, and I'm going to make a few introductions and a few thank yous. First of all, I want to thank Jen Palanovich. Jen here is Executive Director for Ruth Washburn Cooperative Nursery School, which is here. And I know a lot of you pass by here almost every day. Jen invited us to have a meeting here to let you all know what's going on. This is not a required meeting by the city. Actually, Alex asked some questions at Shauna, and we said, well, there are probably other neighbors that want to know what's going on. And since we're going to be your neighbors, we wanted to let you know what's going on and see if you have any questions. So what we'd like to do is go through, yes sir?
Can I ask why it's not a required meeting from the city?
Because we're ahead of the required meetings. When Alex asked us a question, she said other neighbors may want to know. So we decided to put this meeting together independently so you'd have information ahead of time.
But I guess what I'm asking is why wasn't this notified to everybody in the beginning before it was ever put together? Because if you do something with a piece of property, unless you're government, you have to get okay from the city. All right. So what I'm asking is why wasn't it posted? And why wasn't it that we didn't know about this until just a month and a half ago?
So we're not in that portion of the process yet. Yes, sir?
And why are they drilling and setting property lines and stuff
So
over
you're
there?
already going, right?
So please, I beg, let us go through this and we'll explain that as we go along. And then if you have questions at the end, you can write them down. That's why we provided pen and paper so that you could do that. We call this meeting voluntarily.
Right.
So please know that. It wasn't required by the city. We did this so that you guys as neighbors would understand what's going on with the property.
Okay, well, I got one more question before I stay here. Is this meeting in any way, shape, and form us saying that we don't want the property built, and can that be retracted?
No, sir.
Then why? Because let me. I got a question for you.
Let's let him talk and then we can ask.
So what is the building actually about?
Okay.
Let's get there.
Really quickly.
Let's get there first because
really quickly we'll go through it. So please bear with me. I don't want to get off schedule, and it's not really about the schedule because we'll stay here as long as Jen will let us stay here. But I'd rather go through and cover all the facts before we get into other issues that raise other questions. So please let us do the presentation and respect that we came to you voluntarily so that you know what was going on.
So no matter what comes out of this meeting, it's not like you can go back and be like, nope, we're going to move it somewhere else.
I
You're
don't
gonna go
understand that
forward with
question.
this anyway, right?
You're going to go forward with this regardless of whether this meeting happens or
No,
not.
the planning commission is the one who decides,
Yeah,
right?
we still are going
So,
through the city process.
planning
There will be a
commission
city,
first.
another city official meeting
A
that will be
required
posted.
city meeting.
Yes.
Okay, I guess the start of it was supposed to be in August, or I mean, September or October. That's what we read in the newspaper, so.
No, sir. We're not gonna really dig over here, so to speak. We're not gonna turn dirt probably until,
Spring, late
Well,
spring.
you
Late
have to get
spring,
approvals from the
April.
planning commission.
yeah,
All those
we'll
things.
go through all the city's approvals. You guys will get notices. I mean, we'll do the proper thing. What we were trying to do is get ahead of it and give you good information so that you understood what was going on before we had the city meeting. So thank you. So I appreciate your comments. I do want to introduce a few people. Shauna Kempinen is here. Shauna is the executive director of the place. The place is Homeless Youth Services here in Colorado Springs. And Shauna's been the executive director for about 8 years. She'll speak in just a moment. She and I will do a tag team. The developer was supposed to be here, but the developer representative came down with COVID yesterday. So Shauna and I are going to try to tag team and answer questions for her. And then Becky Gundren. Becky's here. She's the COO of the place. Mimi Brown is here. She's on the board for the place. Peggy Bird is our youth housing services coordinator, and my lovely wife and volunteer at the place, Pam, for 16 years. And then Sam is here, Sam Clark. Sam is going to speak in just a moment. So what I'd like to do is have us go through this, and Sam can talk about the need for housing. We'll talk about both the project and also the programs for it, so that you all have as much information as we can give you ahead of time.
You can let Jen say a word if she wants to.
Yeah.
or- That's all
Go
right.
ahead, Sam.
That's all right.
Jump in?
Jump in there, Sam.
Well, hi. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time. I know it takes a lot out of one's day to come talk about housing sort of in the middle of a weekday afternoon, so appreciate you guys being here. My name is Sam Clark. I work with the Pikes Peak Real Estate Foundation. We're part of the Pikes Peak Community Foundation. So we're a nonprofit entity, and one of the things that we're really passionate about is getting more affordable housing in this community. The reason that matters a lot to us is if we want a really strong economy, if we want a resilient city, you have to have affordable housing. The reason that's important is all of us go to a barber, all of us shop at the King Supers just down the road. If you have a kid that's in school, their teachers are all folks that don't get paid enough to pay the median rents or buy a median home in Colorado Springs. This is something we probably have all observed or have all experienced over the last couple of years. Housing has gotten really expensive in this community. Housing is already incredibly expensive in a city like Denver. And so our job as the Real Estate Foundation is to help this community figure out how do we get more projects established that are going to make it affordable for the folks that really run this city, to allow them to live successful, economically resilient lives in this community. You do that by having affordable housing. So one of the reasons that we have been behind the work that Shauna and Wayne and Becky have been doing is they put together a really phenomenal affordable housing project. It's a really complicated project. It's sort of unique for this community in that it is using something called a low-income housing tax credit. And what that means is the state is offering tax credits to a developer. And Marcia, you and I were just talking about, you're somebody that sort of lives in the center politically. This is a Reagan-era program that was saying, hey, how do we provide market incentives so that developers have incentives to build housing that's not going to go to the most expensive rent possible? So they created this low-income housing tax credit program. Colorado Springs historically has not had a lot of these projects. We haven't been very good at winning these awards. So the Real Estate Foundation was really excited when we started working with the place to realize that we had the opportunity to get a lot of state funding to help make housing in this community more affordable. And we were so enthusiastic about this, we purchased the land where the project is going to be. And then we've also, through our mothership, the Community Foundation, provided some of the grant dollars that go to making this project sort of roll out, making sure that we have enough money to cover the costs and make sure that this program is really well operated through its first 5 years of existence. So that is the reason that we really care about this project. We're probably about 10,000 units of affordable housing short in this community. So that means that if you are starting your career, if you're somebody that's working in public service, you likely are not able to find a home that you can live in affordably. And that means you're less likely to pay for your healthcare needs. It means you're less likely to go to the movie theater and help new businesses survive in this city. So we're really passionate about this. We're really grateful that we have a chance to meet you guys and talk a little bit about what this means to our community by having it here. But long story short, this is a really unique project for this community. It's incredibly well designed, and it's a reason why the Community Foundation and the Real Estate Foundation have been so behind this project. We're really enthusiastic about what it means for the West Side. Shauna, is it all right if I have you come in and talk a little bit about who's going to be living in a project like this, a little bit about why is the place important, how have people maybe interacted with the place in the past, and kind of what's the vision for the project, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about the design details, that type of thing. But I think the important thing first is, who is this, and how are we, who are our neighbors going to be when this project gets done?
Before you start, I have a question.
Yeah.
So the real estate, what did you say it was? The real estate what?
Pikes Peak Real Estate Foundation.
So they're not worried about property values going down because of this? Because this is not a housing unit, this is a homeless shelter. Let's just be clear.
Actually, I might change your mind about that. So one thing is, this is a $17 million project. There's really good research around the fact that when you have new projects like this, it actually has a positive effect on the neighborhood residential area. I can give you some data that just came out on this recently, but long story short, these are expensive projects, and they're new projects, so they're things that really
So
help
let's
neighborhoods.
put them in the
out.
Broadmoor. Yeah, there you go. There's a project. Where do you live? Let me ask you a question. Where do you live?
I live on 29th and Pikes Peak.
How long have you lived there?
4 years.
4 years. Let me tell you, I've lived in this neighborhood within 300 yards of here my whole life. 58 years. All right? And all the homeless, what are we doing about the homeless down here? Nothing.
It's got worse.
Not a thing. And is this going to make it any better? Is this going to make BRs here any better than this project?
So if I can actually kind of kick this to Shauna, because I think you're bringing up some good questions.
So the answer is we're not doing nothing anymore, right? And we're not building a shelter.
Okay, so we're going to have trash cans for the homeless, right?
So let me share a little bit with you. I share your concern in our community
live?
across the city.
Where do you live?
I sold my house on Pikes Peak and 8th Street a few years ago, and I live by Cheyenne Canyon.
Okay, Cheyenne Canyon. So this isn't going to do anything to your property value. Whether you put a $17 million building there or not, it's not going to do anything to your property.
We'll be glad to share the information and the research about what happens to property values.
I own the biggest piece of property around here, all right, that's undeveloped. What's that going to do to that piece of property?
We're going to let Sam send that data out to everybody, and I'll make sure that
because I do
have
real
that.
estate and I don't.
I'd be happy to
That's
send that
not the
along.
case.
So I wanna acknowledge that this is, you came in with what the hell are you gonna do over there? I get it. I totally get it. So we want to share what's happening, and yes, we're just at the start of the process with the city. There'll be more meetings. But this is just a brand new drawing of what's called the launch pad. It's 50 units it's 50 apartments. It's a big apartment home community. It's not a shelter. And it's designed for young people, 15 to 24 years old. So let me tell you a little bit about who the place is. So this is really beautiful. The developer's amazing. We can talk about that. But what really matters is what's going on inside, because you want to know what's going to be happening on your street, on your corner, right? Like, who are these people moving to your neighborhood?
Yep.
So we are working with young people who are primarily, might be some a little older, but 18 to 24 years old. Let me just tell you our goal at the place.
But do not have to be.
Some people can be older. It would be housing discrimination to say you're 25, you can't live here. But in the other projects like this around the country, it's typically the late 20s and then they move on. And we have a process for that. So we have a really simple goal at the place. We want, if any young person falls into homelessness in our community, we want them to be able to get off the street in 24 hours. So we have all sorts of programs that work with that. A drop-in center. We do have a shelter downtown. We've been doing housing like this in other buildings all across the community called scattered site housing. We have about 150 youth who live out in apartments right now that our staff work with, The second thing I'll just ask you to think about this, because raise your hand if at the age of 20 you had all your stuff together and it was all good. That's excellent. I moved back into my parents' house twice by the time I was 22.
I moved out when I was 15 and never wanted to do that.
That's awesome. But some of us have parents and support systems where we can do that, and not everybody does. And the young people we're working with have had a lot of trauma in their background, usually abuse situations, and they are going to end up down at that 7-Eleven and 40 and 50 years old doing drugs and other things.
They already did that.
This is what's
Right.
one of the aims of this is to have a good support system and option for them to get off the street, live in a decent place, and work with our staff. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to be doing inside the building. And Becky is our timekeeper tonight because I'll talk all night. She's going to stop me. Inside this great building, we're going to have support services that are wide-ranging. Everything from what's called case management, listening to youth, linking them with resources. We're going to have health services that come in, including mental health services. We're going to be doing food and mood groups. We're going to be doing support groups. We're going to be bringing all the things that youth all need different things. There's no two alike. So youth need different things, and we're going to bring those into the common centers that we have there. So youth will live in their own apartment and also be able to come down to meetings. Let's say we have an AA meeting that's happening once a week, or we're doing a food cooking class. We also have, a laundry area. We're going to put in a gaming room for them. These are young people, so we're going to do things that they will want to do. Those support services are there every day, 24/7. We will have security and/or support staff there all the time, including a front entry that's monitored, and you have to be let in to it. So you have to be accessed into there. So it won't be just anybody come and hang out and do whatever you want to inside this building or outside the building. We'll talk a little bit about Cohen Esri Development Group, the Lisa who has COVID, who's not here. They've done apartment home communities in multiple states. They have literally 1,000+ units, and they've property managed them, so they know how to do this. I am not a property manager. We work with young people. I know that stuff. We don't know how to manage a property. That's going to be their job. So who are these young people? There is a process that would take me 2 hours to explain, but essentially, I can't just say, hey, Jim, I think it'd be great if you lived here. Do you want to live here? There's a process in the community for youth and for adults who are experiencing homelessness. Every week, people who work with them come together and are talking about, where is Jim, where is Juan, where is Cindy, how are they doing, is it time for them to, can they get into a unit, because we have far more people in homelessness than we do housing in the community, right? So in that weekly meeting, there's a conversation about who's the most vulnerable right now, what's going on for them. The young people who are in the most vulnerable situations, who have already been in chronic homelessness, at the age of 18 or 20, they've already lived more than a year in homelessness. They have various levels of disabilities. So it won't just be any young person who moves in there. So we can't decide, you can't decide, it's a community process.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, what's the turnover going to be? Is it going to be where they have to sign a lease?
Yeah.
Is this going to be Section 8 housing? Is this going to be, how
Yeah.
are they going to pay for this?
Sure. I'm glad to answer that question. So the average turnover for us, what we see in scattered site housing, is maybe 2 years to 5 years. Is about how long you stay. But the idea is that this doesn't have a time limit, because for some of the young people we're working with, especially with disabilities, 24 months isn't enough time to have them learn skills, get resourced. So this almost entire project is paid for by the state of Colorado. It's not Section 8 housing. It's paid for through the tax credit, through the low-income housing tax credit. And there's what's called supportive housing leases, supportive housing dollars. All of the youth have to sign a lease. They're background checked, and they have a 1-year lease that's renewable. The kind of the brass
So
tacks.
it's teaching them how to pay rent, how to be responsible.
Exactly.
And then how is this as far as being part of the community? How is it going to be part of the community?
I think that's something we're going to learn, actually, by working with all of you. We've already been talking to Jen about, she's been talking about, it's really hard to find employees. Every business that Wayne went and talked to said, we need some employees over at the King Super and the Arc and other spots. Jen also talked about, hey, maybe we could do an art project to get there, like on the wall that's facing us. So we'll start with those things, but we'll have a lot of volunteer opportunities there as well, right? So we're going to be running groups. That doesn't have to be always by a professional. Of course, it'd have to be a background check person, etc. But if you know something really cool, if you want to do hey, I want to do I want to take the kids hiking once a month, we would love that. So we really want to be good neighbors and to be involved with you to create this here. Yeah.
Do you have an active outreach for volunteers in the community?
We will have something very specific for this project. So it will be about 2 years from now when people are moving in, give or take. So construction starts next spring. About 2 years from now is when youth would be moving in. So we'll get toward that volunteer project. We have volunteers in our other programs already. Yeah.
How was the site picked? What was the criteria?
I can talk to that.
Yeah, Sam, go ahead.
So when the Real Estate Foundation is looking at where can we create housing where people are going to be the most successful, right? So the goal, the reason we're big believers in Shauna is she's got a really great track record of taking kids that were not otherwise going to be successful and helping them be really productive members of our community. The things that are most important and the things that are really important if you want to get these tax credits that, to your point, what pay to help these folks sort of be successful in these spaces. What we look for are there jobs nearby. So the ARC, the Ace Hardware, the King Supers, they're all looking for low-income employees that, probably can't afford housing on minimum wage anyway. So that's a real big bonus. Number two is it's really close to transportation. So you've got the bus line on Uinta that helps people get to jobs, helps them get across the city, that type of thing. That's a real big bonus for people that are otherwise unable to afford the other amenities in life. It's also near the trail system, so you're not far from the Midland Trail. There's parks nearby. Proximity to the Westside Community Center is also a big part of this that allows people to enjoy an outdoor space, gardening, community programming. I think to your question of all right, so some kids lived here for a year, they got their feet underneath them. How do they go learn from their community? How do they go be involved? This is a site that has a lot of those amenities that make this a project where we think people are going to be really successful from being there.
Okay, one more question then. On that, how are you going to police it? Because
Yeah, I think
because I guarantee you that the kids that come in there that are new, kids, I have raised 3 kids. I have raised 6 grandkids. I know what teenagers are like. And not necessarily, yes, not necessarily are they going to be cooperative or actually doing what you guys want them to do.
Here's another thing is how are they going to interact with all the other homeless people that just
Let me say a
happen to
little
be
bit
there?
about both those things. My son was in homelessness for about 18 months after he got out of high school. Captain of the wrestling team, blah, 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 on the wrong set of drugs and the wrong set of friends. It doesn't take long for a kid to end up on the street, right? Sometimes of their own volition, sometimes because adults aren't taking care of them. So we'll have staff there all the time. We're going to have security guard 24/7. And the truth is, there are some of these youth who aren't going to do anything we say. They're going to stay in their apartment. We're going to knock on their door and be like, hey, there's a group tonight. Hey, there's this. And they're going to tell us to F off. That is the truth. And that's okay because they have freedom and are allowed to do that as long as they're not harming themselves or someone else. like they can stay in their apartment and live. And what we know is that's very specific to the work that we do at the place. We have the professionals who work with young people, so we love teenagers. I tell people all the time, send the adults away, bring us the teenagers. Because we just know that it's like, oh, you stand alongside them and say, what's up for you right now? And if they don't want to talk and flip you off, cool, let's talk tomorrow. And if they want to, it's every time we have that conversation, it might take 3 months or a year, and then that young person will say, hey, what's that group going on? We see it every day. 85% of the youth that we have in housing stay stably housed and move forward. If they do exit housing, they're moving on to a safe, stable place, sometimes back with family, sometimes market rent apartments.
How do you get a turnover rate of 2 to 5 years that you previously mentioned, though, if you don't have some type of curriculum or education, a retraining program that has to be in place, that they have to agree to?
Right.
How does that make this any different than just an expensive homeless shelter?
Right.
With 30% of homeless having mental illness and 50 having addiction problem, your site survey suggested that it might be best and well suited next to children 1 to 6 years old.
Yeah,
Well, I'd be
that's
really happy to meet that individual and see how they thought that would be okay for the future of this generation that's literally growing up right here.
Can we go get Jen?
Well,
Jen,
if Jen is here,
invited us to be
the
here.
executive director of the school, she is
She supports
a huge supporter.
We understand
do all the
that.
parents support
Doesn't
that?
mean the
Let's-
parents are on board.
Yes, I mean, maybe the director does, but like, has anybody asked the parents how they feel
Yeah,
about that?
what do all the parents
just-
that-
I'm
This
just
is part of
curious.
this process, so I don't know if there are parents here tonight of the school, but we're glad to have more meetings with anybody on that. So I want to say something to your point. You're exactly right. There are programs that require, like, you step up, you do this, this, and this, or you're gone, right? That is why there's homelessness. Because the people we're working with
Don't want to be
have so many things
Some
that
of
are
them don't
happening for
want
them, it is sometimes hard for them to put on their shirt, much less think about getting their GED. When we work with them, calmly, patiently, individually, really frequently, more than half the time, in fact, in this kind of housing, youth will get their high school diploma or get their GED. It often takes a long time, and it takes a great deal of patience. Peggy does have gray hair; she dyes it. I'm just going to tell you. It takes a great deal of patience, and sometimes it gets tough. Just like with anybody in any house or any apartment, sometimes it gets tough, for sure. And there's a lease, and there are rules by the property manager, so they can't just do anything they want to.
So you
That's the
did
lease
mention,
rules.
sorry, you did mention background checks.
Yeah.
Does
Yep.
that also include being close to a school for the site placement, also sex registry, sex offenders?
Yes. Sex offender listed
Not
as a
allowed.
background check. Yep. Yep.
And what about the other 45 units that are going up the hill? That's gonna create more traffic up here.
Yeah, we just
What do you
literally
guys
learned
know
about that a
about
month
that?
ago. We didn't know about that. but-
What about, can they come and go all day and all night whenever they want to? And what about all the parking? How the heck are you gonna handle the
Good
parking?
questions. Parking, traffic, all those things. So,
What about how
That's
much more
crazy the way it
security we're
is
gonna
right
have to get
now.
with 50 more of them in the
and
neighborhood? Believe me,
yeah,
you
It's been
know,
bad.
yeah.
people break it in constantly to houses up here.
Pooping on our
You
sidewalks.
used to be able to
that
leave your
issue.
stuff unlocked. You
Well,
can't anymore.
again, this is in part meant to solve some of that, but let me speak specifics. So, we will have, so these are brand new because we just got all the soil samples and the engineering and et cetera, and we had an original design that can't work on the property. Probably no shock to any of you because you live on the west side. So we will have a 31 car parking lot. About 2 out of 10 of the youth in this apartments will actually drive or have a car. We're hope some of them will work toward it. We'll actually pay for their driving classes. So we hope that they do, but we don't have to have like 60 parking spaces, but we'll have enough, 31, enough for staff, enough for youth. So they won't be parked along the road. And sorry, she just asked a very specific question. Coming in and out, yes. So yeah, it is. So this isn't a shelter, or it isn't a program where you're locked in. So if you want to go somewhere at 2 in the morning, you can go somewhere. And we monitor who's coming and going, so you can't bring a bunch of people in with you. And we have so many services going on that we're helping the youth who are having some of the difficulties. Let's say mental health issues. You know, we have youth, we have therapists now that are working with young people. So we'll have all of that. So it's not a locked any kind of lockdown facility.
Can we let Jen speak real quickly to this gentleman's question about what we're doing next to 4-year-olds?
I'll come up and speak. So, I haven't met many of you. My name is Jen Palanovich. I'm the executive director of Ruth Washburn. We've been on this site, well, we've been in existence for 61 years on this site since 1971. So, I've been with the organization for 12 years now. And I can tell you, we are so happy, and I'll tell you why. The property next to us has been nothing but a problem for the school. We've had to evacuate the school multiple times due to fires being set. We've had to remove large dead deer off the site because they would come up and die right by the fence, and not good, lovely things for children. We've actually been shot at from that property, passed over there from that property. And so for our perspective, the amount of challenges with the property have just been really, really extreme for our school. It's constantly on our security and safety plans, how to deal with that. The unknowns are really hard for us. So for us, I'll get to you in just a second, but for us, as an organization, having children here, we are really excited to have a place for families who, or for individuals, young people who do not have a place to be, who need some support as they're growing up. We have a young man who's been homeless over here on the west side for quite a while, and he's a former student of ours, of Ruth Washburn, and that's really hard. And he just needs support and services to be able to make those next steps. And so organizationally, we really are thrilled to have a cornerstone organization really looking at some of the hard things that are happening over here anyway. So, you got a question, sir?
Yeah, so I understand it's a very complicated problem that we have. And somebody said we're trying to fix the problem. Okay, so my question is, how are you going to put out a fire by adding gasoline to it? 1. 2, why doesn't this school just expand and start educating individuals instead of bringing other youth here, right? Which are going to be homeless. I don't know if you guys know this, but the homeless goes over here, the supers, they wash in the toilet, and then they go sit at the Starbucks that some of you probably eat at, right? Like, it's not something that's good, okay?
So we look at it as a positive from an education place. I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that many of the caregiving industries and jobs in the world, many of those individuals start out on the margin. And so for education purposes, we're excited to work with the place and to support individuals.
How are you going to work with the place?
What's that relationship look like?
Yeah.
Right now, what does it look like? What I envision, I'll tell you what my best case scenario is that we're able to take our staff who are state level trainers and train individuals in parenting skills for their future lives as parents, in teaching skills so that they may be able to be an assistant teacher in a classroom. We are excited about that. There is a huge lack of that for our young folks in general. I've worked with youth for a really long time and marginalized youth in other programs. And while that's not what Ruth Washburn is by any stretch, it's really a passion, and we can really see working with them as just supporting what's happening over there. But from our perspective, it's all about future outcomes for future children that they may have or children they would work with. So.
Well, I mean, I'll ask you, I guess, for any of you, I'm curious if there is so much freedom as you would want there to be. Obviously, they're, legal adult citizens, right? How are you going, and many of them struggle with addiction. I did some counseling in the women's prison in Tennessee when I was an undergrad in Nashville. It's a hard cycle to break, drug addiction. So they're next to, you know, a young elementary school, Needles, you know, near,
We have that already.
how are you gonna stop that?
I mean, truly, we have it already in such an extreme way that I don't think people understand. I mean, we do the cleanup at our dumpster every single day.
Yeah.
Every day. So that's not unusual for us. It's something we're already having to deal with on a very real
Isn't there-
basis. So something to support
Yeah.
these folks as they're doing this, to me, is nothing but positives. We have current families here who are suffering through addiction and
Yeah.
really working their way out of that. So that's not, again, an unusual thing for us.
Okay.
And it sounds like this is a very secure facility. There's gonna be
For here.
cameras outside,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so it's gonna, there'll be, people are gonna have to check in and check out, right? At the desk, at the front desk, and so they're accountable.
Yeah.
There's cameras everywhere.
And it's the same
cameras in
here,
the back.
Right, we have cameras all over our property, inside out, you know, inside the property, outside the property, you know, on our side as well.
I have one more question, I'm sorry. What if somebody in the facility commits a crime? Is there anything that ejects them from living there, or is it just, it seems like it would be normal conditions, right? Like you live under, you wouldn't necessarily get ejected from your apartment.
Well, we
in
wouldn't,
other words.
I mean, we wouldn't know that unless the police were around or something,
Yeah.
and if somebody, right, if somebody committed a crime and they were released on bail, and they might live there.
Got it.
But certain crimes, a certain type of record would not be allowed there. And I think, I just want to say with the substance use disorder issue, that is a disease that definitely overlaps with people in homelessness. The youth we know, if they had a little bit of some substance stuff going on, once they're living on the street, we know young people who do meth all night long
Yeah.
so that they don't fall asleep and get raped. This is their reality. Once they are inside a safe place, it's an adjustment, to be sure. It's its own adjustment. Whoa, now I'm by what's going on? However, the circumstances, right? Everything that they're going through can be better addressed once they're safely housed. And we absolutely will have things that we'll work through with them.
Right.
Just like any apartment, if they're living in any
Yeah,
apartment.
let me point out, we've got an apartment building over here, and those people have freedom to come and go.
Yeah,
And
of
they're
course.
18 to whatever.
Right.
And this is really a much more controlled environment. I don't want to say controlled that, you know, we're handcuffing them or making them stay in their room, but they have much more opportunity to succeed right there than they do right there.
Can you speak to the relationship with the property manager? Because the place is not going to own this. So what's to say 4 years from now it turns into luxury apartments?
Good question. So it can't, because it's funded by the state of Colorado, it has to stay exactly what this is going to be for at least 15 years. Our intention is that the place buys it in 15 years. I mean, that's fully what we're going to be working toward. And we'll have, we want to say just a couple more things from the development, since she's not here. Sam had a couple things about development, and then we'll make sure we have time for questions. So.
Does anyone have any questions they want to pass up, and then we can, or
Did anybody jot a card down?
Or you just want to keep doing
Real
open,
quick
so we'll
though,
just ask them.
Sam, you had said 50 units?
Yeah.
So is there anything written in there that so occupancies, right, have square footage, what is permitted by state regulations, right? Does this mean that, what's the square footage of each unit going to be?
I want to say it's 420. It's 420. Is it 400? 425?
425.
It's a very small
Okay, so
one bedroom.
all right, so
and a couple
efficiency
two
size. So what does that allow for occupancy per unit per state regulation? Like originally there was 3 or 4 comments that said 50 individuals here, roughly 18 to 24, 5 years old. But in reality, by that square footage number, you in fact can double and triple up individuals.
We can.
We can't.
Yeah, and a big part of that is, so, and this is actually kind of combining the two questions. So, the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority is the one that administers these credits. They're incredibly complex. They're heavily monitored, essentially around, they'll be checking the rents to make sure that you're not overcharging and making these unaffordable. They're checking the eligibility of the tenants. They kind of spot check and make sure that you don't have people leased up that don't qualify for those leases. And they'll also be checking in and making sure that you don't have 4 to a bedroom, that type of thing. So there's a pretty robust, and maybe that's actually a criticism of the program, is it's so robust the due diligence that happens after those credits are issued, that one, it makes it really hard to manage the program. That's why we're glad we have Shauna, because it's a big leap for them to take on something like this. But it also means that the state's pretty involved in making sure that you're fulfilling your commitment. If they're going to give you a bunch of money to build this type of housing, you better be pretty sure they're checking up and make sure that you're administering it the way that the program is.
And the same thing with the way the building looks, the exterior, the landscaping, they've got to be on.
It's actually our taxpaying money.
There you go.
I'm just
I
saying,
heard that.
it's a community thing. It's from us, not just the state of Colorado. So we should have a bigger voice in this.
Something scaled
That's
to
why
this
we're
magnitude will in fact raise property values around this area.
Raise or erase? Sorry.
Raise.
Raise, yes.
If it does not raise, it will certainly lower
It will
property
lower it.
values.
So again, it's a $17 million project replacing a vacant lot. And so going back to, and I've got a good study that came out in April around these things raise property values. It's a pretty marginal effect. But the fact that it's a positive effect tells you it's not lowering property values. And
Who did that study?
It's the Urban Institute. They released it in April. Basically looking at what is the impact of low-income housing projects. So these are low-income housing tax credits. What's the impact of those property projects on the neighboring property values?
Who funded the study?
It would have been the Urban Institute. Yeah.
Under HUD.
I came in a little late, so if you've already said this.
No, please, yeah.
Please don't repeat it, but I'm just wondering how you select the young people that are going to come in, and how long is the expectation that each young person will be?
Yeah, excellent question. So let me answer the last one first. This is non-time limited supportive housing. This is one of the biggest issues, is that sometimes there's a 2-year program, but most of the young people with disabilities who've been living on the street, the 2-year program is simply not long enough. Sometimes they're even moving out of our supportive housing into maybe a group home where they're going to stay the rest of their lives. So it's non-time limited. Our experience and the data from other organizations doing this, there's 2 other of these sorts of housing in the state of Colorado. Typically, young people are there 2.5 to 5 years. Because just frankly, they're going to get real tired of us bugging them, right? They're going to be like 25 years old and like tired of us telling them that there's a group going on. So they'll stay an unlimited amount of time. We can't say you're 26, you got to move. That would be illegal. I didn't mention the name of it before, but there's a process called coordinated entry to housing, which is part of our homeless solutions in our continuum of housing services. So every week, people not like me, people who know things about youth and other people in homelessness, they sit around a table literally and say, where's Jim, where's Sam, what's happening for them? Hey, a housing unit opened, we have lease dollars for them, we can move them in. That still takes usually 2 months to find a landlord, just because there's such a shortage of housing. So we don't get to decide who it should be, it's pretty much given to us.
So are these kids coming from other programs, or?
Sometimes they will have youth sometimes there'll be youth we know. We have a street outreach team who is out Monday through Friday directly with youth living in parks and cars along the alleyways. Sometimes it will be those youth who we've worked with a long time, and they'll finally say, okay, let me try, right? And they're so vulnerable that they can get into the housing. It might be youth who have even stayed in our shelter. That happens sometimes. But they could be from other programs that we don't even know or haven't met, but they will all be from this community.
So it is Westsiders, specifically.
Westsiders?
Correct. We're on the west side of
No, a
I-25.
zip code is not because of coordinated entry is a county-wide, it's El Paso County. So we can't discriminate by a zip code of where they're
from
from.
El Paso County.
Yes. So right now, today, we see about 350 youth every month are living in homelessness just in El Paso County. Almost half of them are unsheltered. There's a lot.
I'm hoping that someone's going to be doing a study saying that this type of facility, with the support that you're going to be offering, is going to show that there's a problem.
Yes, there will be. In fact, the architect in this project, they're called Shopworks. They just are working with the University of Denver on a study and evaluation of the project that went up in Grand Junction about 1.5 years ago. So what's cool is they're kind of doing all the dirty grunt work up front, and then they're saying, oh, we did this because we thought it would work, don't do that. So I'm talking to we're talking to them saying, oh, we thought this kind of space would work, but we found that actually youth were too close together and they got in fights. So we know not to design the space that way. So we're learning all along, and I'm sure this will be something that is studied.
Can I ask, so we've gotten a lot of really good questions. I genuinely appreciate it. There are hard questions to ask too. We provided some cards for people to write down. You know, not everybody likes to sort of stand up and ask. So is there anybody that had something written on a card that they could pass to Peggy, and we can kind of go through those questions that way as well, just to give everybody a chance to talk? Peggy, do we have any cards?
She said everything got answered.
Okay, sounds like everything got answered.
have
I
a
just kind of want to
question.
be mindful of people's time.
Right.
And so maybe we can do a couple more questions, and then what we'll do is we have some flyers here. So
With
you know,
contact information.
people are going to go home, you're going to think about it, you're going to remember a question you wanted to ask. We have contact information for folks here. We're also going through the city review process, so there'll be like a formal meeting that's facilitated by the city. That's maybe the one that we were kind of talking about earlier. Again, this was just we wanted to be transparent and good neighbors and talk to people. So that's what this meeting is. But just kind of wanted us to sort of have a way to kind of end this and make sure everybody got a chance to talk and know who to talk to before we go. So can I get,
Yes, so that flyer that you have, is it going to have contact information for moving forward for when everything starts and we're seeing stuff happen? We can call and say, did you know? Kind of stuff.
My contact's on there. Wayne is Wayne is our volunteer chief, so he will be here. I will be here.
The developer.
And then that's perfect.
There are
That's
two
fine.
people with the development company,
Okay.
and their contact info
Great.
is on there.
So the second part, somebody had asked earlier, and I asked Jen before she left, the parents at Ruth Washburn are on board as well.
All
So-
of them.
Well, I don't know.
They pretty much all said yes.
So we
That's kinda
haven't
hard to
like
believe, so
voted
that's
to
why I'm
every
asking.
single person, so we are a private organization, right? And so one of those things is the tuition dollars talk. And so these have been conversations we've been having with our parents. When our parents have had questions, we've been able to direct them in the right way. But as a holistic 12-person board and 140 families that we serve here, it's been overwhelmingly positive. Overwhelmingly.
Out of the families, not the board members, right?
Nope.
You're not getting anything out of it?
No.
Yeah, just
So the families, right? Not the board members.
the families.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. So.
And how many of them live in this neighborhood?
That's a good question.
You know,
That's a
we
very
probably
good
How many are
have
here
about
today?
50% of our
Are any of
families
the
are
parents
West
here today?
Siders.
Probably not.
I'm,
Are they notified?
I'm a pickup parent, so
Mary?
yeah, we have about 50% of our families are West Siders. So,
And we're glad to do.
and the family I picked up
You,
is from.
Wade and I, you'll have our contact info. If you want us to come to your church, your book club, go to you get a coffee, we're glad to get more in depth and hear more, because we've had the chance to hear a lot of questions, and we are really interested in continuing hearing from you.
I got one last question.
Oh, he had his.
Okay, what are the consequences for your tenants who go out in the neighborhood and misbehave? Number two, who is the person responsible for seeing that they behave and respect their neighbors?
In our community.
Which one of you specifically? And what
Well,
is your phone
I'm going to point to
number?
Peggy, but it'll be Peggy, not literally. I mean, Peggy runs our housing program with all the youth and all the case managers, and myself. I mean, if there is something that's happening, I'm not Pollyanna. I'm not here to like BS you, right? We run a shelter. On occasion, do youth go to a neighbor and pull their fence down? Yep. And that neighbor comes to us and says, "Hey, what happened here?" We talk to that youth. We'll help recompense. I mean, it's not going to be perfect.
Do you fix the landowner's fence? Do you kick the kid who harassed
legal
or
matter.
bothered the landowner out
I mean, it's
so
hard to
that
answer
that
now.
problem
I mean,
is solved?
we have fixed fences before. We've paid things before that got damaged. So requirement of the state of Colorado, this is called supportive housing, it's called permanent supportive housing. A requirement is that we cannot make a youth leave for something that they did just because we didn't like it. I mean, if they commit certain sorts of crimes, they're going to have consequences for that, of course.
What sort of consequences?
Well,
Like if
they-
anybody commits a crime,
Yeah.
it's the same consequence. I mean, they're residents, if they get caught and
I
are
think
arrested,
most of us are aware the police rarely respond to this neighborhood.
I think you'll see an increased supervision.
I don't think
in the
so.
neighborhood.
That's
I
incorrect.
doubt
That
it
won't happen.
highly.
There's about 250,000 people that 6 to 8 sheriffs police every day. That's sheriffs. That's outside of the Colorado Springs city limits. That will not happen, sir. Absolutely not happen. I got a question. Who's profiting from this? No, that's BS.
The youth.
No. Who is profiting money from this? Who is actually getting it? What corporation? What corporation is getting it?
About the land.
I can try and work you through the deal if you like. One, these are incredibly complicated, so I'll do my best, really and honestly. So we own the land. We're selling it to what's called a tax credit partnership at cost. So I'm not making any money. I'm actually losing a little bit of money on this, but it's not.
Meaning the community foundation.
The community foundation, excuse me.
So
Yes,
how
the
much is
Pikes
the
Peak
land?
Real Estate Foundation. We bought it for $735,000.
Okay.
Sorry, how recently?
Within the last 2 months. Yeah. So it was owned by a deceased estate.
Sorry, was it a tax? So deceased, was taken for tax lien by the city?
No, it was owned by a trust, like a deceased trust, and so the family lives in Illinois, and we purchased it from them. So just help me. I'll try and work through the deal and get to other questions. We sell that to the tax credit partnership. That's the entity that's formed, that is essentially created when these tax credits come from the state. And what happens then is those tax credits are used by banks or companies that have large amounts of taxes to pay. They use those credits and then make an equity investment into this project. It's incredibly complicated. That tax credit partnership then works with Shauna and the developer to essentially build the project. And over a 10-year period, the state gives money every year to pay for the construction costs of this project. If you're lost, it's because it's a very complicated and Byzantine program. The rents are incredibly affordable. So what's
It would be in the $900 range. I want to say. I haven't
Oh,
seen
wow.
that most recent.
It then gets subsidized by.
But it's subsidized by the state.
It's subsidized by the state. So
No, you're exactly right. Who
Yeah.
has? What kid has that kind of money?
Yeah.
I pay my kids rent.
So
It sounds like Section 8. I'm just saying, for you.
You said the project earlier, and that's exactly what this is. The projects. That's what you're proposing.
I kind of
The
think it was
project.
a development project.
So
yeah.
what you're saying is that corporate peoples up at the higher echelon are getting profit from this. That's what you're saying.
It started off as a tax write-off.
Yeah,
it sounds
but
like.
eventually your corporate sponsors and blah blah blah, they'll end up getting the profits off of this, and the community here will suffer from it.
It's perhaps I've done a bad job of explaining this because the bulk of it is coming from state credits.
That's us.
So,
That's us.
that is, it's dollars allocated by the federal
Sir, I didn't
government.
say the bulk of it's coming from the state or not. I said somebody is profiting from it, sir. Okay? That means the corporate sponsors that are you just said it, the banks. They're profiting from it. And then the community here, not one of you live here, do you? Not one of you. Like here? In this side?
Right here?
On this side?
Pikes Peak, yeah.
On this side.
Live on Mason.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Super awesome. Wonderful. Have you gone to the supers? Have you seen the homeless? Have you seen the homelessness? Have you seen this over here? Like, you're going to add fuel to the fire, sir. You're going to add fuel to the fire.
That's what we're afraid of.
My daughter lives on 17.
Cool. I moved out of here because of the homelessness.
Yes.
Like, I moved up the monument, right? Because of the homelessness. I don't even live here anymore because of that. I would have, because I have great neighbors, but I don't live here anymore because of the homelessness. You're going to push everybody out of here, all the good people, you're going to push them all out of here.
What I'm afraid of is that your youth that you're trying to save and you're trying to rehabilitate, you're going to get involved with the homeless people that are here. There has to be something, and I know this is not you guys' responsibility, but if you're bringing in these youth, there's got to be something that's going to chase them out of here.
Yeah, because
This is the crux of it. This is it. As soon as the Downtown Association got the city council to make panhandling illegal downtown, suddenly this place was overwhelmed. And those of us that have cameras in our homes and are up early, this neighborhood just lights up. It's busier at night. If you don't have it bolted down in the morning, it's gone. So this is just adding, it's just adding to what has already been pushed on this neighborhood. That's, I'm not telling you what you're doing isn't going in the right direction, but this is how the whole neighborhood feels.
You
I
guys
agree.
need to address it for you as well as we
We
need an
absolutely
address
agree.
for us.
We absolutely agree. We will think of it, I mean, like, we can't control what youth do all the time.
Right.
But we will, it is absolutely our responsibility to work with youth and how they are interacting and building skills of who, you know, so there's
So
some
for a
research.
community program though, part of you working with the local community should in fact have been, you should have had a meeting like this months ago.
Before this even started.
And this shouldn't be an opportunity for people to voice their grievances with what is about to be done. It should be to voice their opinion for or against what is to come. And based on that, that would determine whether or not this is a good site location.
Not just because you buy
Because it's not going up in Monument, and we know it's not going to the Broadmoor.
Nope.
Right? However, you could have purchased this piece of land over off of Powers at half the cost, but you're not going to do it there because there's multi-million-dollar homes being built over there now and tons of high-rise apartments going in, having beautiful views of the apartment. So this site was selected, I think, for a different reason. It was something nefarious because this over here, without talking to the locals, in a sense, you're here just, you said, because we wanted to, but if you wanted to really win over the local community, it should have been done when they had a voice.
Correct.
Yeah, it would have been addressed.
So when my daughter-in-law first emailed you for this whole thing, well, yeah, we've talked to a few people, you know, neighbors or whatever. I bet you 95% of the people in this room either heard this was happening from the newspaper. I learned it from this young gentleman. He calls me up one morning and goes, "Can you believe what they're doing over there?" I said, "What the hell?" So I go over to his house and start reading it. I'm going, how many of you ever heard anything
Before
about this
yesterday.
before?
Today.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Today.
Unless I got the email.
Today.
And see, no matter how, what is good that you guys are doing,
Which is good.
No matter
Isn't
what.
good when you don't go around to all the community. The people here are the community. I'm sorry, you live on 29th or whatever. You're not the community for right here. These are the people that live within 2, 3, 4 blocks of this, okay? Of this mess that we've got going down here right now that the city won't do anything about. Nobody will take these people to the Broadmoor and drop them off.
They have too much money. They can
You
buy
know,
them
the
all.
people from the Broadmoor, they got all their freaking money because they won't give these guys any money. All right?
So we appreciate, I mean, I love what you're saying, I really do. But
Yeah, but you
once
don't hear
again,
what I'm saying.
let me say, we're doing this voluntarily. We're not required by the city to do this meeting. We came to you, and maybe we didn't come soon enough.
After the fact.
Well, it's not after the fact. I mean, the only thing that's happened, we haven't started digging, the only thing that's happened is we purchased property. So realistically, we're at risk.
But don't you
to
think-
try and make
yes,
it
you
right.
probably are,
should have
because
paid
now
the
you know how we all feel.
before you ever purchase
That's
the
why we're
property.
here, man.
I mean, look at, okay, so for example, down on, I'm just saying this, for East Las Vegas Street, next to Mountain States Pipe and Supply, they put up a 4-story homeless shelter down there, all right? 10 years ago. Look at that mess down, look at the mess.
Look at
What
the
they promised everybody,
Marion
what they
House.
promised everybody that was gonna
Mess.
go on down there. Look at the mess down there. We got the soup kitchen. What's wrong with this whole thing is we're really not tackling the problem here.
Well,
We're not tackling the problem because
but
we
how
don't
does it
give
tackle
anybody
the
any
problem?
mental health.
It's one of the solutions.
I can speak to, I know, I'm familiar with the tiny house community that's going right on Sierra Madre there, right next to the Salvation Army.
Right.
And I know that the Mill Street neighborhood was very upset and very concerned about that property. Now, I think they're early stages, but I think they've tried to be really good neighbors, and I think that the community, I don't know, I feel like you're inviting people to be a part of making this work. The police issue, that's all, but maybe it'll help. Maybe your being here will.
We're hoping.
So if we could say something about that, We on purpose did not want to have housing near where all people in the homelessness are told. And the young people we're working with are frightened of the adults in homelessness for the most part. Because that's not who they want to be. They don't want to be that guy who's 40 and in the shelter. And they want to be youth. They want to, every youth to the penny, own my own house, have an apartment, and have kids. They all want to have kids so they can do better than their parents did. Right. So it's, we hear you. We wanted it to be a bit removed because the youth have not those sort of chronic behavior issues. Are there issues? Yes, because again, no teenagers. And they don't have the issues typically that adults have already lived into, and all adults deserve help as well.
Okay, so next thing I want to know, and I'm sure everybody else does too, we want to know when it comes to a meeting with the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to know that.
If you could please put your name on that list, we will make sure you personally get that news, but obviously it'll be in the paper. You had a question.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that you're going to bring 50 people between the ages of 15 and 24.
18, they'll have to be at least 18.
18 and 24. And they're going to be able to roam the neighborhoods day and night, whatever. Is that correct?
We're not locking them in. This is not a, they didn't commit crime, this is not a locked facility. They have different levels of disabilities and they can be out and do things. If they're causing crime, doing things, we'll be calling the police on them. I mean, sometimes that happens, so we hope the neighbors would as well.
There's no consequences for committing crimes anymore.
I don't know what to say about that particular thing. But we will, the reason that our services work, 85% of the time, a young person is stabilizing, they're getting an education. Many of the youth have jobs. Maybe they can't hold a full-time job, but they're getting jobs. Our goal is to maximize their independence and have them not living on the street and getting worse.
If I can sort of thank everyone for coming tonight, like this is a process, and this is the first step in this process, and sort of talking to you about it. I really would like everyone to sign up so that we know how to get in touch with you with the updates that you're asking for. And we also have the contact information for Shauna, Wayne, and then folks from COS Westside, the actual developer that sort of works with the contractor who builds the actual facility. So if you have questions, specific questions, when you go home tonight,
We'll recall and Wayne Lane,
those are the
except
information reach out to.
get them out.
I noticed the signs around the neighborhood.
Did you see him?
I know you haven't done it yet,
Awesome.
but you did
Well,
purchase
it's
the
time to
property
sign. We're going to boot
roughly
those
2
bad
months
people
ago.
out. They're bad
Now, say there's
people.
overwhelming
Look
support
it.
from this community.
Be a good
They
human.
come together
Well,
after tonight's meeting.
not just
They come
me,
together
but
as
everybody.
community
This
members
is just a few
to
of the
go
things
against
Wayne
this
has
bill,
done. Your utility
which
bill in
obviously you
January
guys
is
are
going
for,
up.
right?
That's
And we've
Wayne.
heard your side
He
of
did a
why you're
backroom
for
deal with
and a little bit of
Wayne.
why these community members are against.
First
So
of
what
all,
would be their
who
process?
Who does
And
that?
what they do as far as petitioning, city planner, city council, what's their best avenue?
So you have
and he said he didn't know. Go alone. He got kicked out of
that
There's a whole bunch of stuff. So he's a bad dude. And she's just not qualified. She came in, carpetbagger. She moved into the area a month after Richard resigned. She's pretending like she saved the Westside community. I've read the document. That's not true.
That was actually my profession. I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
I was the forester for the state
Thank you so
forest.
much.
She did fire mitigation.
There you go. She's full